Hello and welcome to the Traybakes and More Cooking channel. I'm Callie and today we're going to be making these beautiful, light, fluffy, golden top traditional plain scones. Just plain scones, nothing fancy, no chocolate, no fruit, nothing like that. But split them open, put on some jam and butter, or even some clotted cream if you can get hold of that. Not that I ever remember having clotted cream on scones when I was growing up. Some raspberry jam here, which is Little Miss Traybake's favourite. Just a few ingredients, 12 minutes in the oven, and there you have it. Traditional plain scones. Okay, so there's not a lot of preparation to do in advance of making these scones. I've turned my oven on to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 degrees centigrade, and I've got a baking sheet out of the cupboard. Regular baking sheet, you can put a bit of baking parchment on it if you prefer. It makes cleanup a little bit easier. Also, it disguises the rather rustic, antique look of my baking tray from all of you. And just sprinkle a bit of flour over the top of that. That's it, preparation's done. Let's get baking. So the first step is to deal with the dry ingredients. I'm just going to sieve my flour, my salt, my baking powder and my sugar into this bowl, get a little bit of air in there, make sure there aren't any lumps, and that's it. So we have our dry ingredients sieved into the bowl. Next stage is to rub in the butter. It's just cold butter, straight from the fridge. And all we're going to do is just rub this butter with the dry ingredients so between your thumbs and your fingertips like that until you get it resembling breadcrumbs. So here you can see after I've rubbed the butter into the dry ingredients, it just looks a bit like breadcrumbs. There's no big lumps of butter there. And all we need to do next is to mix in the milk. Right, final step before we roll these out and cut them into shapes is to mix in the milk. Just plain, regular milk here, not buttermilk. For these scones, I do have a few other scone recipes that use buttermilk, and we'll come to those at a later date. So I'm just going to pour these in, mix it all together. I'm using a little butter knife to do that. You can use a spoon or a fork or a spatula or whatever you want. Mix it lightly, mix it quickly until you get a nice stiff dough, nothing too sticky. If it does get too sticky, don't panic, just put a little bit of extra flour in there and then we'll roll it out. I know I keep going on about using a light hand with your scones and not overworking it. It just means you don't want to overwork the dough, you don't want to knead this, but you want to work it enough to bring it together so it's sort of nice and smooth and a nice little firm ball of dough like this. So all we're going to do is turn it out onto a floured work surface, grab your rolling pin, and then we're going to roll this out till it's about 2 centimeters, about 1 inch thick, and then we're going to cut it up. Right, so the next stage is just to use your little cookie cutter, or scone cutter in this case, to cut these out. And mine is a 58mm cutter. I like to keep my scones on the small side. If you don't have one of these, you can use a glass or something like that just to stamp these out, or even just, make it into a little round and cut it into wedges or something like that. You don't need fancy equipment to make scones. So I'm going to use the fluted edge for these because I think it looks pretty. And all I'm going to do is put it on the scone, press down firmly, straight, don't wriggle it around, pull it back up again, and then I'll take as many as I can out of this, bring the dough back together again, re-roll it, and cut out the remaining scones. Now, you may find with your last scone here that it'll get to the point when, it's really not going to cut out properly. So what I tend to do, just push it into the cutter to make it about the same size as the others. Let's see what we can do with that. So this one may not look just as good as the others, but that's the one that you can eat straight from the oven. Now, just before you put these in the oven, you want to brush the tops with a little bit of beaten egg. So all I've got is here, just one egg beaten up, and using the world's smallest pastry brush. Although it's a perfect size for these, so you know, it's really quite useful. I'm going to brush the tops with egg and then transfer them to the baking tray, so there's no little drips of egg that will burn on the baking tray then, which might happen if I do it after I've put them on there. And then I'm just going to bake them in the oven, 10 or 12 minutes for this size of scones. If your scones are larger, they will take longer, so you know, keep an eye on that. Bake them until they're glossy and golden and your kitchen smells amazing. I see, I get drips of egg everywhere. Those now are on my countertop. They'll get cleaned up quickly and not ready to burn in the oven on the baking tray. Just going to transfer these over to the tray and put them in the oven. Now these are just out of the oven. I've transferred them to a wire rack to cool. Leave them there for as long as you can hold off eating them. And they're nicely risen and they're golden on top and they're just waiting to be smothered in jam and butter. This is the little one that we did at the end. Remember the last rollings of the scone dough. So, you know, it doesn't look as pretty as the others, but that's still going to taste good. So there you have it, traditional plain scones. So keep an eye out for more recipes, subscribe to my channel, tell your family and friends, and I'll see you again soon on Tray Bakes and More.